Hi everyone, it's Justine again. If you have not been watching our series, this is our Pride Week, and so yeah, my name is Justine Wild. I'm the LGBTQ2S+ Subcommittee Chair for District 5360's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. I identify as a bisexual woman, got my shirt on today, and I use the pronouns she and her. So thank you so much for coming back or tuning in, whichever. Today, I do want to talk a little bit about sexuality. So we did talk a little bit about the LGBTQ2S+ acronym yesterday. So I just want to take it a step further, and we'll continue this conversation tomorrow as well. And that LGBTQ2S+ members can kind of be split into two big groups. So we have sexual identity or sexual orientation, and then gender identity over here. Members of the LGBTQ community can be from one or the other. They can be members of both. So with that in mind, we're going to talk a little bit about sexuality and sexual orientation today. And then tomorrow we will talk a little bit about gender identity, expression, all those good things. So let's start off with some basics on sexuality. So sexuality is just another way of saying sexual orientation. So your sexual orientation is who you are attracted to. So orientation cannot change, or no. Orientation is something that we are born with, and it cannot be changed coercively. Sexuality, however, is fluid, and it can change throughout your life. So it is not impossible to identify as one thing one year and another thing another year. It's all very personal to the person, but sexuality is fluid, but we cannot be changed coercively or anything like that. So let's start off with talking about some orientation identities. So straight and heterosexual. So what this means is that if you're a man, you're attracted to women. If you're a woman, you're attracted to men. And then let's switch it over to the LGBTQ community. So our three sexualities that we talk about, sort of the big three, we have lesbian, gay, and bisexual identities. Of course, there are tons of other sexualities. We'll cover a little bit, we'll cover some more later this week, but let's start with these three. So what do they mean? So L, lesbian, is a woman who is attracted only to other women. Gay is a man who is attracted to only other men. Gay can be a bit of a confusing term for members who are outside of our community, just because a lot of us tend to use it when we are not men who are attracted to men. So you can assume if you ever hear someone who isn't male identifying or doesn't present male, if they use the phrase gay, they're likely attracted to someone of the same gender, but always feel free to ask for clarification if someone ever identifies as that and you want to know what it means. And then bisexual. So bisexuality has kind of gone through a bit of a change, I would say, in the last couple years. So there's sort of two definitions that are still floating around and are used, and a bisexual who uses either of the definitions is totally valid. So the one that you've probably been familiar with is a bisexual is someone who is attracted to both men and women. And recently there has been a bit of a shift within parts of the bisexual community to wanting to be more inclusive of people of other identities, like non-binary, genderqueer, anything like that. So a lot of the phrasing has changed to, you know, I'm bisexual, so that means I'm attracted to two or more genders. So that's just something to keep in mind, is that there are sort of two different definitions of bisexual. They are both valid and they are both used, so you might come across one or the other. What can also be a little bit confusing is that latter definition I went over is very similar to what pansexuals identify as. So if we look at the Latin, bi means two, pan means all, so a pansexual is someone who's attracted to all genders. However, some bisexuals still identify as bisexuals even if they do follow more of a pansexual definition. Hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, let me know. We can talk about it. So, to end off this video, because I want to leave it very quick, very broad, and then we can go into further conversations later, is I want to talk about some phrasing to avoid. I'm not talking about slurs here. I'm talking about phrasing that can be offensive, phrasing that to really just avoid if you can. Let's just jump into it. So the first one I have is homosexual. So this one might be a bit weird. You might have thought that it's a totally fine thing to say, and you know, for the most part, it's not the most offensive thing you could call someone in the LGBTQ2 community, but it is offensive, and I will link a video below that does a little bit better explaining why. But essentially, it just has a lot of bad connotation, unfortunately, from the church. Homosexual is used to sort of degrade and dehumanize the LGBTQ community, so it's best just to avoid that word. And then, the second one is sexual preference. So again, this is often a well-intentioned phrase that we use, but sexual preference really brings back this idea that sexuality is a choice. It's not a preference, it is something that we're born with, and that can get confusing, especially if you're talking to someone who is bisexual or pansexual, because we might have a preference to dating one gender over the other, but that's a completely different thing. So if you're talking to someone in the community, try not to say sexual preference, it's orientation, sexuality. So yeah, try your best. And then the last one I want to go over is alternative lifestyle, or just lifestyle. My life is just the same as yours. I do the exact same things. The only difference is that I prefer to date women sometimes. It's just my sexual orientation. It doesn't have anything to do with what I do in my day. We're all very much the same. So again, this one I do find comes from a good place, but it is best to just avoid using that phrase. Okay, very quick before we end, I do want to talk about some new language that you might see cropping up. So these are the WLW or MLM, so women loving women and men loving men. These phrases have really come about fairly recently, and to be honest, the context that I usually see them in is more of a clinical, research-based context when we need to study groups of people, and sometimes it's just easier. So when we say women loving women, that can mean a bisexual, that can mean a lesbian, pansexual, any of those people can love women, and it's the same with the men loving men. So it is a little bit more of like a clinical term, in my opinion, but it is being used a lot more now in popular culture and online. So if you see it, that's what it means. Obviously there can be more letters than that. It could be like men loving women and men, so on and so forth. So if you're ever confused, just feel free to ask for clarification, or you can even just do a quick Google search and someone will have what that acronym means. Just wanted to throw that out there. I do actually really like these phrases. I think they're more broad and encompassing, but we'll see in the next couple of years if they sort of gain more traction. That is all I have for you today. I hope this was helpful and a good little introduction into sexualities. If there's anything you want clarification, you want to do a deeper dive, let me know. Happy to do so. Yeah, so hope you enjoyed the video. Stay safe, stay well, and I will see you tomorrow for our conversation about gender.